If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning.
I think we joined at a similar time.
Similar time.
Late
yeah.
80s?
Yes, yeah.
It was a very different time.
It was fantastic.
It was fantastic. It was very political.
Yeah.
It was right in the heart of AIDS and HIV.
Yeah.
We did a lot of fundraising. We did a lot of political stuff. For me, it was coming out. I was 23 and not living in London and completely frustrated as how I could have a gay life and be true to myself. And I called Sandy, and there was a number in Time Out, in the gay section of Time Out. And he said, well, come along, see how it is. So we went to the London Lesbian Gay Centre, and at the beginning I was terrified. There was a whole room of gay and lesbian people who I had no idea who they were, but the only thing we had in common was the music and the singing. I sang with the altos, and the women welcomed me. Initially, not so warmly, but after a while, when they realised that I knew what I was doing, I could count, I could come in on time and get the right notes, they loved me because they could rely on me. Yeah. And that was the start of a beautiful friendship with the choir and all the singers. I've known Rosie for almost 30 years.
Yeah, a long time.
And it's just nice to see her again today.
For me, the choir was like coming home. You know, it was like I'd walked into this space with all these other lesbian and gay people, brothers and sisters. I just felt at home. It was fantastic, and the music was important because we sang about our lives, we sang about our rights, we sang about our desires for freedom. It was almost like we were protesting through music. Yeah. Which was good.
Somebody once said to me, it's a political statement to stand out and say we're a lesbian and gay choir.
Yeah.
And we were always that.
And we did a lot of work for the lesbian and gay community, because I remember we sang a lot at the London Lighthouse. Not just money for
not
them.
just the London Lighthouse. No. We were basically the first ones to be called any gay pride event, winter pride, summer pride, any fundraising, anything that needed any extra entertainment, we were always first on the list. And sometimes it was terrible. There was no mics, there was no warm up, there was no space for us. But you know, we turned up and did our thing.
We did our thing. We marched on with our little pink folders, and we had white shirts and little pink bow ties in those days, and we sort of marched on really sort of as we'd been trained to do, and sang our music very seriously, and you know, off we marched again. It was fantastic. It was lovely.
What was lovely as well is that the choir welcomed people to compose and arrange their own music. So historically, Michael had done a lot of arrangements and was our conductor, and then he stepped aside and became our pianist. And you did some arrangements.
I did some. I did Come Out. That song Come Out. We did it in about 4 parts.
Yes, that's right, which was good. I enjoyed that very much, and I sang it with you, I think.
Yes.
Stephen Reith-Muller did a number of arrangements. One of my favourite one was Dusting Down Dusty, which was a medley of Dusty Springfield songs with movement as well. We hadn't done a lot of movement until Dusty Springfield came along, and it's just hysterical remembering what we did to Dusting Down Dusty, and that was Stephen's arrangement. The standard of singing was average. We tried very hard.
We did sing the parts though. I mean, we sang 4 parts.
Alto, tenor, baritone, bass.
Baritone, bass, yeah. I sang with baritones.
I sang with the altos.
I didn't want to stand with the women. I didn't want to be singing the high notes. I couldn't get those high notes. So in the end, I sort of...
I think she probably could have, but she didn't want to. So she wanted to, yes.
I eventually ended up in the tenors, I think. That was my...
Your home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I can remember though when I did join the choir at the time, there was also this stuff going on about AIDS, and it was really serious because there were people, dropping like flies, and there was so much hatred. It was like called the gay plague, and I felt really terrible because as a lesbian I wasn't so open to getting that disease because it wasn't so prevalent, but I wanted to help. I wanted to, because they're our brothers, and so, for me it was important to be there and sing those songs and just get it out there, because even at times people were doing barrier nursing. Do you remember that? The nurses would turn up with all the masks and the gloves and everything. How terrible is that? And then Princess Diana, she was the one that broke the ice because she went down somewhere to meet this guy and actually physically on camera shook hands with him.
Touched him.
And
exactly.
that was really important.
Huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. But I felt as a lesbian I wanted to support these guys because I felt there was so much hatred. There was so much injustice. There was so much like they brought it upon themselves. It was a terrible time.
And our relationship with the London Lighthouse was very, very strong. We did a lot of fundraising for them because they were desperate for money.
Yeah.
The government was just not giving funds to this amazing centre. And we had to leave the London Lesbian and Gay Centre as they were pulling it down. So we were very grateful for the London Lighthouse to allow us to rehearse there. And we performed there regularly. And for me, one of the really hardest things was meeting and talking to people in the London Lighthouse. They would just sort of shuffle into the back of the room and hear us rehearse or hear us for a concert. And it really brought it home to us. This is a real person. This guy is probably going to die. Yeah. And many did. And it was very, very sad, and it was very humbling to be there and to raise money for these people we were directly helping.
Yeah. And I can remember one of the singers in the choir, Steve, I don't know if you remember him. We were breaking up for the summer, and I said to him, "I'll see you after the summer, Steve." And he said to me, "Yeah, I wish." And he never came back after the summer, and I found out afterwards that he died. And that was really heartbreaking.
And there was another singer, a baritone chap, who also died, and we were chatting just a moment ago about one of the singers who we both knew very well who died recently. So it brought it home to you that this was real, and the Pinkies could do something about it, and
bringing it out into the mainstream by singing those songs and by supporting the Terence Higgin Trust or the London Lighthouse, whatever it was we were supporting. It kind of brought it out into the mainstream. And there was a lot of other people helping at the same time, because I remember it was the same time we did the London Palladium, and we had people like Lenny Henry and Dawn French.
The Tiller Girls.
Tiller Girls.
Wow, they were amazing.
We did this beautiful, beautiful thing with them. I think we raised quite a bit of money, but it was the publicity that was the main thing, and also the fact that we had all these stars supporting us and doing all that. So, in a way, it was like bringing it out into the mainstream, and that was really important. I mean,
our stories are slightly different because when Rosie was in the choir, I think you had identified as a lesbian a long time before that. Yeah. But for me, it was very much a coming out story, and I needed some way to tell people I was gay, but also some opportunity to go out and get experiences and meet people and fall in love. And I wanted it all the next day, of course, because I'm very impatient, and that was not going to happen. But I remember very good friends of mine in the choir, one in particular, Anders from Denmark, Copenhagen. We were good friends, and he allowed me to stay over the night before rehearsal in his flat, and he'd take me out for drinks or take me out clubbing, and then on the Sunday we'd go to rehearsal. So it was immediately a safe experience, somebody to guide me, help me. I was so green, I was so naive, I had no idea.
I didn't realise
what
you were that
to
nervous,
do.
dear. I never realised you were that nervous. You looked fine to me.
I was
you
completely...
always a scream, a laugh.
Yeah, it was an act.
Fun.
It was an act. But for me, one of the things that I'm proud of the most is the travel. Before I joined the Pinkies, we didn't travel very much. But because I'm a travel agent, I've been a travel agent all my life, I wanted the Pinkies to travel. So I arranged the tickets for us to go to Miami. I arranged the tickets for us to go to 4 European festivals, and also 2 gala festivals as well. And I was the one who said, let's go somewhere before the gala festival. So for Denver, we went to Seattle before we went to Denver, which was an incredible experience because Seattle had a huge choir as well as a smaller a cappella choir, as well as like a showbiz choir, and that was and then there was other choirs as well. It was a huge scene. So for us, they were so welcoming and so friendly.
Yeah, here's a picture of Tim and Nicolette, my one-time girlfriend, Elliot's Bay, that is. Which was just, in fact, we were on that boat and you could see Vancouver. Do you remember?
Yes. It was just
and we went into Elliot's Bay and the guys were all chucking fish at each other. It was like amazing. They were just chucking fish in this fish market. But it was fantastic. We had a great time.
And then we went to Denver for our first gala festival. There were 3,000 of us on stage. Do you remember we did that song Motherless Child?
Yes.
The group singing was just incredible because we were a small choir, maybe 15, 16, 18 singers, and suddenly we were singing with 2,000, 3,000 lesbian and gays, and an 8-part harmony, and it was overwhelming. I was crying with emotion because it was so overwhelming.
It was overwhelming, and you know something, that Denver trip, it was fantastic because we were all in this sort of compound. And it was just lesbian and gay people and all this music and singing. And you felt this kind of like community so strongly. And one time there was a couple of guys were there, all people dressed up sort of like police uniforms and, the village people, Anyway, at one point we decided to go out and have a little look around Denver. And I saw these 2 guys dressed up in police uniforms. So I thought, those are 2 guys from the thing. Hello, you! Well, they looked at me.
They were really...
They were real police officers. Fuck! Get back to the safety of the compound.
What do you like? And then, of course, the next one after that was Tampa. And before Tampa, we went to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Again, which was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
It was a huge community, lots of different choirs and groups. And it was a nice way to do something before the Gala Festival, because at the festival we knew some people who we could hook up with. And then the European festivals were quite different. I went to Hamburg, and Zurich, and Geneva, and Groningen. I think I went to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I went to Hamburg and Groningen. And I remember in Hamburg we decided to do some busking.
We did.
And we put the guitar box down with a few coins in to encourage people to put money in. I got my guitars playing. And then someone came up and asked us for change for the train. So we actually lost money busking in Hamburg. How could that be?
I forgot about that.
Lost money busking. So.
And the joy of community housing, we couldn't afford to pay for hotels. All of us were on a budget. So, we could just about manage the airfare. So we had community housing everywhere. I stayed with a lovely couple and they made me very, very welcome. Other people had different experiences. I think Paul Firth was in an S&M orgy house for the entire weekend.
He probably enjoyed it.
And he enjoyed it very much. He said to me, these guys was coming and going every I don't know who lives there, who doesn't, It's just an orgy the whole time, And he absolutely loved it. I think for me, probably at that stage in my life, it was a little bit too much. One of my biggest regrets was missing the London Festival for the European choruses. So before I joined the choir, maybe a year or 2 years before, the European organising body decided to come to London to do the European Festival to support Section 28 and support the UK. It was a hugely political move. And it was a huge thing for the Pinkies to organise. We organised community housing, I think, for about 2,000 people.
Wow.
And I was oblivious to the whole thing happening. I wasn't living in London. I wasn't living in an openly gay environment. But it all was going on. I think Robert Hugel and Philip and Michael were heavily involved with it. And to this day, it was an absolute miracle that it happened. It was a huge organisational challenge to do it. And I think they sang in the Hackney Hackney Empire for 2 or 3 nights, and it was sold out, absolutely sold out. And you know how sometimes things go against you? The tubes were on strike at the time when the event was happening. So all these people had come from Europe to support us, and they couldn't travel. So there was on and off buses, and it was an absolute nightmare. But it was a huge compliment to London that these European gay and lesbian choirs had come to support us because of Section 28. And Section 28 was big.
Yeah.
No one knew what it was. No one knew what it meant. I suppose deep down it was you couldn't promote homosexuality. But what does that mean? You can't have a gay or lesbian event advertised, so you're promoting it. It was very.
You couldn't present positive images of lesbian gay people. That was what I think it was about.
It was very strange. Nobody really understood what it was, but it was Thatcher, wasn't it?
Thatcher. Yeah.
Sorry.
And pretend families used to call us those. If you were pretending to go to work, pretending to pay our mortgages, pretending to live a life.
It was a really big deal, and they were supporting us on it because in Europe it never would have happened.
And I think the atmosphere as well in the country was quite hostile at the time. And I remember at one point being in Gaze the Word bookshop, and this is just an example of what it was like. A couple of us were in Gaze the Word bookshop, and suddenly the police burst in, and they had a warrant, and they just started coming in, and they started pulling books off the shelves. They were looking for a particular book. I think they were looking for a book where this guy had written about Jesus on the cross being gay or something. Anyway, it was under the blasphemy laws.
Oh my God.
And they started pulling all the books off the shelves, a bit quite hostile. We just didn't say anything because if I say anything, they're in the mood to arrest somebody, and they would have arrested us. But they just messed up the joint and then left. And we were all sort of astounded, and that was the way it was in those days. That was the way it was.
It was
a hostile environment.
Yeah. So to be openly gay or lesbian, you had to be very, careful.
And I remember one of the gay prides I went to, earlier gay prides, where I was with a friend and we were kissing. It was in the park, and this police officer jumped up from behind a bush and said, that's indecent, went on about that. And I said, well, this is gay and lesbian pride. And I said, anyway, what are you doing behind that bush? At that point, he decided not to pursue the matter.
I wonder why. Yeah.
He was literally hiding behind a bush. It was a hostile environment, very hostile. So the Pink Singers, to me, was a safe space. It was a place where I could relax, I could be myself, I could be openly gay, I could feel nobody was going to be threatening me. All the guys were gay, so they weren't after my body, which was great. The women were gay when I was after their body. That was also
great. Everyone was happy.
It was lovely. It was a safe space. It was a safe space in those days when things weren't that safe. It was a lovely environment to be in.
I remember we were singing a concert at the Lighthouse, and I said to my mum and dad, "Do you want to come and see a Pink Singers concert?" And my dad said, "Oh, I'm not too sure, So Sally, what do you think?" And she said, "Absolutely, Anthony, we are going to that concert." And so Dad goes, "Okay, Sally, no problem. We're going to that concert, Timothy, no problem." So do you remember they came to a concert at the Lighthouse? I had a lot of glitter and tinsel going on, and they were terrified. They were absolutely terrified. But for them, going to a hospice like the Lighthouse was a big thing for them, and seeing what we did, they were surprised by how good we were. Because at times we were good. We tried very hard. Considering we didn't audition, we had a variety of abilities. They really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And my mum said to me afterwards, "Thank you, darling. Thank you, darling. That was amazing. That was amazing. I was crying. I was laughing. Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing." She said, "We were in the right place at the right time. And your father enjoyed himself as well, didn't you, Anthony?" "Yes, Sally, I enjoyed myself very much, very much."
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And I have to thank the Pink Singers for the 10 years that I was with them, because for me, it was finding a home. It was finding a place where I belonged. It was finding like-minded people. It was finding a place where I could feel affirmed. You know, there was an affirmation about, and we were all struggling for the same thing, which was our rights and our freedoms, and we sang for them. And that was the beauty of it. You know, we didn't do anything, drastic, like, I don't know, abseil down the House of Commons on but we sang. And what a beautiful way to protest.
I agree.
To sing.
Absolutely.
And those concerts we did at Gala as well, they were phenomenal. I mean, it was like, sometimes there were like 5,000 people just singing these wonderful gay songs. We'd all be holding hands. We'd all be because they'd send us the music beforehand, so we'd practice it. And when you're holding a hand of somebody who's holding a hand of somebody, and there's 5,000 of you in a room, I can't tell you in words what that feels like.
I remember we sang for the first time hand in hand, and we were practicing it, and someone said, "Oh, it's a bit schmaltzy, it's a bit tacky, a bit Disney." And I said, "Well, it's American, give it a go, And we sang it. There were tears streaming down my face, streaming down my face. And when we went to Miami, we sang Sometimes When We Touch for the first time. Again, tears streaming. You are so overcome with emotion. You cannot sing because your voice is quivering.
But the emotion is that we were all in the same room together, lesbian and gay and transgendered, whatever, all together supporting each other and singing for a same cause. And that was really powerful.
Very
it was
powerful.
Overwhelming.
I'll never forget that time.
Me neither.
Oh.